Hey Justin. So new
Hello, Chad.
time. New time. Who
New
dis?
time. Now let's see. My hair's a mess. Dog's still in his crate, and I have a warm cup of coffee in my hand. And it can only mean one thing: the sun's not awake yet.
No, this is the Lord's time right here.
This
I
is the Lord's
love
time.
I've been I've been lazy here lately, but I really enjoy being up early. So here we are. I feel like my voice is a little scratchy. Does it sound weird?
You sound all right to me.
Okay.
It
Well,
might just be that early morning, still getting your coffee in you.
yeah.
Hmm. Oh man. No, I do
Mm.
enjoy this. I do enjoy this time if I can actually get myself out of bed. And that's I mean, I actually slept good last night. I was so tempted to text you and be like, yo, I staying in this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, for
But
sure.
I wanted to see how this goes. So, Dad Report listeners, and I would encourage the audio only because my hair is an absolute train wreck. So maybe you do want to watch the video. But if you're like, what is going on? Usually, Chad and I record late at night after my toddler goes to bed. And today we're recording at 6:18 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Not that we're keeping track or anything.
Not that
So
we're keeping track or anything.
So Justin, what's new in your world? Anything you want to update our listeners on?
Still no job. Any solid. I've had two interviews with one church. Outside of that, everything else has been quiet or has been made an apparent closed door. Um, and this is two interviews, but not with the church that was down there in St. Peter's, whatever that little city was, wherever that TC3 church was. I forget what it was called now. Treasure Cove. Um, wow, how did I forget the name of the city? Doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. So yeah, then yesterday I had basically three churches get back to me or three positions that I either was inquiring about just to see if they were even open, and then one that had been open that I had been in the email chain for, and then they all came back and were like, "Yeah, closed. No, sorry, wish we'd done earlier." So, um, otherwise, I've been spending. I mean, I still get the occasional contract hours. Really just trying to keep my head up, and then been spending some time in the workshop, which has been nice.
Cool. Well, always good to hear the progress. Um, yeah, man. The job market's kind of weird right now. Um, it's weird. Like I'm hearing that employers are like hanging on to people even when they don't necessarily have the business to justify it.
Hmm.
Um, and then you hear somebody's doing layoffs, and then, but man, I feel like church world is so weird because a lot of times I think this is a good thing, but churches are like they're focused kind of on things a little bit further down the road.
Yeah.
But at least from and I'm not in that world as much, maybe as I used to be. Um, it just seems hard to predict what they're doing. So anyway, um, I hope things move forward quickly.
Yes.
Um,
Well, or even just getting me information. I feel like this
yeah,
semi-professional ghosting is a lot of what I've been coming up against. Like I've sent
yeah,
two emails in the last couple of weeks. One of the church that they were just like, hey, checking in case you didn't get my resources. Here's my resume and speaking links. And then one of them has yet to even get back to acknowledging that. So I think they've just moved on and just left me high and dry. The other one came back through last night and he was like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry for the delay and all this. I still want to get coffee, but as far as this position, we're moving ahead with two other candidates who are better suited, blah, 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 blah. So it's just that kind of tussle. And then everything I've kind of thrown out there in the secular market is just I haven't even got aside from the auto generated. Thank you for applying. Our talent team will look at this. Um, you know, it's just it is
Oh
what
yeah.
it is. So we're I don't know, my father-in-law are kicking the tires on starting some kind of small business out of the workshop and seeing where that could potentially, because he's unemployed now. He's finally getting some interviews and interviews of merit these past couple of weeks, which is good. He's been unemployed a lot longer, but he was also drawing unemployment, whereas I don't think I'm able to do that yet. So nor do I really want to get to that place. I'd like to go back somewhere.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Well, I hope things, like I said, I hope things progress and progress quickly. Um, so yeah, that's a tough situation to be in. That waiting, that waiting game. Let's see. I had a few things. Oh yeah. So I have joined the club of like cold water things. I'll
oh
call it.
no, no.
No, so check this out. So um one of our seventh grade boys, students, he has known for a while that he wanted to get baptized. He's like, I know this is my next step. It's what I need to do. At summer camp, um, he did like baptism class that we put on and was all in. Um, kind of was having a kind of, sorry, I was trying not to use the pun, but 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Just
Nice.
getting baptized in front of 3,000 people is a whole thing.
Yeah.
And so he was like, putting it off. And then he finally, all right, guys, I need to do this thing. And um, so I was talking to him. I was like, hey man, we got beach baptism this summer. I was like, I know it sounds crazy with there being a whole lot of people on the beach kind of screaming and stuff. I said, but I was like, I went through that and it's a joy and you get all these people cheering for you. And it's a great time. A lot of your friends are there, people you know from church are there. He's like, no, he's like, I get it. And I'd be good with that. Here's the thing. He's like, I keep putting this off and I just want to get it done.
Mm.
He's like, I just don't want to have another excuse to keep putting it off. So I'd really like to do it soon. So on Wednesday, we talked, um, me and him and the other leader, and he's like, could we do it Sunday morning before church? And um, the guy's like, yeah, let's do it. Chad, you good? And I'm like, yeah, but looking at this weather, Sunday morning at 7:30, it's gonna be 35 degrees outside. And at the time, it was like supposed to be 29. Um, And I was like, "Are y'all good with this cold weather?" And they're like, "Yeah, it'll suck, but let's do it." And so I texted him one more time, and I was like, "Hey, I just want to make sure." I was like, "This time next week it's supposed to be 79 degrees." So, and he's like, "Listen, I'm good if you're good." I was like, "Okay, well, I am not going to be the one to keep this kid from getting baptized. So let's do it."
For
So now
sure.
we get out there. Yeah, it's like 34, 35 degrees. Wind is going.
Oh yeah.
And
So it feels
but
like
I
25.
was yeah, but I was surprised, like, he had some people there. He had, his parents were there, family, and even a couple of his buddies and their parents were there. Like, I was like, oh,
Dude, that's awesome.
sweet. Let's do it. So we do it. Um, we take our jackets and stuff off, head out in the water, get it done, come back in, you know, kind of celebrate for like 2 seconds, and then everybody's like, "All right, let's get our clothes back on. Let's go." So we leave, and I'm sitting in church and talking to Shauna, and I say, "I feel amazing right now." She's like, "It's because you went in that cold water." I'm like, "What?" I was like, "No."
No.
I was like, "I hate that." She's like, "Listen, you feel like you feel good and you've got energy, feel refreshed." I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Yep." she's like, maybe you should try like, when you get in the shower, just for like the first couple of minutes, just have it be cold water. And I was like, oh,
No,
really?
that sounds miserable.
So yesterday I get in and I turn it on just enough to where, the pressure's coming full force. And it's like, I'm like hyperventilating. Like I can't catch my breath. I get lightheaded. So I'm finding the right temperature, but you know, it it's a thing. So, hey, here's to trying new things.
Not cold water plunges.
Oh man, and I'm not doing the ice bath thing. No, like that. No, I'm
Ooh,
not buying a tub and sticking it outside and, you know, Instagramming,
I'm in
whatever.
full support of cold water baptisms because you guys live at the beach, but you ain't gonna get me in some cold shower. That's ridiculous. Unless I
Oh
have to be.
man.
Camps usually force cold showers.
Mm. Yeah, well, and turning on the cold water in the winter and turning on the cold water in the summer, those are two very different things. It's
Oh
still
yeah.
cold, but like I was like, oh wow, my body's like convulsing over here. This water must be really cold. So, uh,
Oh
so
yeah.
anyway, yeah,
Oh yeah.
maybe, hey, maybe somebody you should try it. Tell you, I'd be like, nope, that's for somebody else. But hey, seems to be working, so I'll keep it going, see how it goes.
There you go.
So that's my update.
Cold water things. I like it.
Yeah. Um,
Nice.
so Justin, I think we teased this the last time. We wanna jump into Noah, I think is our next rad
Yeah,
dad of the Bible, yeah?
that's right. That's right. We're jumping over to Noah as the dog continues to whine. I'm really glad you guys can't hear that because it's driving me nuts. Um,
Only you.
only me. There's some PETA listener out there. He's like, just let him out of the crate. He will. He'll go outside when we're done here. We take good care of him. He's just not a great fit.
No, yeah, man. People that don't I've never had dogs, don't realize this, but like I have two dogs. One of them is still in a crate. And even during the day, he'll go in there and just kind of
Yeah,
snuggle up and just, it's like his little cave. He
it's a little
likes it.
safe space.
Yeah, for sure. So,
So,
um, I've even noticed my other dog will sometimes act like she's going to go in there and then like give me the side eye and be like, don't you get me a crate.
eh?
Yes.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Um, so
But
yeah,
no, yeah, you're right. So we have worked through kind of Adam. Not I don't you know I guess depending on background, it's all of Adam's story or it's not all of Adam's story. We worked through part of Adam, in two parts. So we're jumping into Noah, and I figured to kick off Noah, we'd keep it brief, so it's like two verses. You could probably back it up four to five more to provide that context, but
so I thought maybe it might be helpful just to give like a quick kind of like Cliff Notes version. Just
okay.
don't want to assume that everybody A uh knows the story of Noah
Yeah.
and B doesn't just know the um kind of Sunday school version. Because let's be honest, this is kind of a dark tale. And we don't always have the whole context. So
Sure.
I'll give it a shot. You fill in where you think I missed something. But anyway, right. So uh it says that God is really grieved when he looks at the state of things, looks at the wickedness going on, sees Noah. And in my Bible, it says that, that Noah found favor in,
Mm-hmm.
um, and favor, put on my biblical scholar hat. Favor is the Old Testament word for grace. So it's interesting because it's not necessarily something that Noah did, even though the next couple of verses it talks about um, that Noah was righteous, right, and he walked with God, but that um, the favor that he found with God was really God's grace. It really didn't have anything to do with what Noah did, and so anyway, spends a whole lot of time building an ark. I think they say it took him like 120 years or something. I mean, forever. And, two by two, right? We all know that part. And then, afterwards is where we have so Noah gets out of the ark and he gets drunk and then curses part of his family. So,
Yeah, there's a whole thing there. Yeah.
hello and welcome. So this is yet, another story where we think this is the guy. And guess what? Find out it's
Not the guy.
not the guy.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a very brief recap, and I know you just have had a couple verses you wanted to focus on for today. So I'll hand it over to you if you want to set us up.
Yeah. And that's just me trying to help all of us that are listening it to be less Bible study and more how can we what do we see in scripture that helps dads or
Yeah.
husbands or even just people in general. Some of these principles are cross title lines. Like you can be a mother, you could be a single teenager who's just listening in because you were like, why did I find this podcast? Um, or it's 18 years from now and my daughter's listening because she found it and well, hi, I love you too. Um, so yeah, I'm just focusing in on verses 9 and 10. I think some of the stuff in the story of Noah that you were talking about, like the idea that, is this the guy? Is he gonna rescue us all? That and there's a fancy theological word that I can't think of this early. Joby would have it. I could hear him saying it. But it's this idea that all points to Christ. In fact, the whole idea of the ark is exactly what Christ's work on the cross becomes for us as an ark for our salvation, but we're not quite there yet. Um So I just wanted to focus in on, and like Chad said, it kicks off. God is grieved. He looks out on humanity. You're following up, pretty much literally following up Adam. Like if you're following along in your Bible, we went 2 pages. And those 2 pages were just Adam and Eve had more children, who begat children, who begat children, who begat children, who lived for this long, who lived for this long. And if you're into that kind of thing, it's a fun Excel spreadsheet, I'm sure, to put together. Um, I'm not that person. So pretty much God looks out. Wickedness of man has run deep. It's gross. It's disgusting. The scripture says that the Lord regrets what he's done, which is a weird phrase because we don't ever think of the
Hmm.
Lord regretting. And in his sovereignty, how does one regret? I don't have an answer to that. I'm just pointing that out because I saw it. So some greater biblical scholar than I, go find the Bible Project. They probably talk about it.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
we'll throw them that bone. So like you said, verse 8, Noah finds favor, and then we kick into which I like that. I don't think I'd ever heard that. So I like that you said, and in reading it now through that idea of this is God's grace in the Old Testament. Um, it makes sense. It clicks. So
Yeah.
verses 9 and 10 are just what I'm focusing on. Again, trying to look at this just as like as dads, as husbands, or again, if you're cross title lines, however it can apply to you. So verse
Can I
9,
say one more thing to help set
yeah.
this up? I'm sorry. I just had something pop into my brain and this is something that helped me. So it is, I think one of the hurdles with the story of Noah is we're like, really? So God got this guy. First of all, he lived over 900 years. Second of all, he got two of every kind of animal. Like, how big did this ark have to, all the questions. And one of the things that I heard at one point that really helped me to just put all that stuff aside is that Jesus talked about Adam. Jesus talked about Noah, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, at the very least, right, we know that Jesus put some kind of emphasis on these people, and either Jesus believed these people were actual real people, as which is what I believe that, or at the very least, he's like, hey, this is something that y'all should be focusing on, like should be getting something out of. So that helped me kind of put all this stuff aside and be like, hey, if Jesus believed in Noah, I'll believe in
Right.
Noah.
Or if he's at least
So
going to reference it, you know.
Yeah, I hope that may help some person because like this is a crazy story. It really is a crazy one. And so anyway, so that helped me in my brain to like be like, okay, I'm good. I can put all these doubts and things aside, all these
Yeah.
questions, like get those answered in heaven, maybe. But
I still want to
uh
get there. Yeah.
so anyway, sorry to interrupt. I
No,
just
you're
thought
good.
maybe that might help somebody. But
That's good. All right. So, verse 9, we kick off and it says, these are the generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God, and Noah had three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And we'll get to the sons later. But really, for the sake of this conversation for Rad Dads, I wanted to focus in on like the way we're introduced to Noah, the way that Scripture opens up the curtains as it were, and is like Noah, Act One. And
yeah.
aside from it being the earth is in complete corruption, and like if we keep reading through chapter 6, it's described as like filled with violence and debauchery and whatnot. And I mean, we'll probably cover that the next time we get together because God and Noah have an interaction, so that's always good to study. Um, but I want to focus in on like the first adjectives we get of Noah, which means this is the way I interpret this is usually if you open up a story on somebody's life and you start with these adjectives, you're using those adjectives based on the sum total of that person's life. Okay, you're gonna get this is my cat. So say hi to Orion. I think he's been on the show before.
He has, for
Hi,
sure.
buddy. And now he's gonna make the dog very angry because he gets to be out and free. Yes, because Orion's was here first. Yeah. All right. Sorry, guys. This is the product of having two by two. Cats were on the ark. Dogs were also on the ark.
I would have rather had dinosaurs. Just saying.
I Yeah, I agree. I don't know how they missed the boat. Ha ha pun. So that's the
Okay.
way I'm interpreting this is kind of this idea of these are the adjectives that as the writers look back on Noah as God as inspiring them to write about Noah, the first things they come to is he was righteous, he was blameless before God, and he walked with God. And these are this kind of setup to Noah. And so my thought was, as dads, as husbands, like, what would your introductory statement in history be? Like, if we were to drop dead, and I hope not, knock on wood, all those things, though,
Right.
for me to live as Christ, to die as gain. So, yeah, I'll crack that one as long as I'm alive. Wow, my cat really is joining the show today. But like, what would I think it's a good check your heart moment or a reflection moment is what if I were dropped dead tomorrow and someone were to decide that I'm worthy enough to write me down in the history books for all of time, what would that introductory statement be? Is it, well, he was a selfish, rotten geezer? Is it he loved his kids well? Like what's kind of that? It's kind of a legacy, a legend conversation, as it were. Because by all accounts purposes, to back you up, like you said, Noah is either a historical figure and or he is an incredibly respected and well-known Jewish tall tale used to teach generation after generation after generation after generation something important about God and history. And either way, like you were trying to use, Chad, that kind of helps smooth out some wrinkles, or at least, if you have questions, that's something you can circle back on later. But that's probably kind of the way I see that. So tossing that to you.
So you want to go with the evangelism explosion question. And they were big in like the 90s. So people that kind of grew up in youth group and stuff, like in my era, evangelism explosion, they had I think that's the right name. Yeah, that's them. They had a method of teaching you how to share your faith. And their
Mm,
big question, um, and I think they're the ones who made this popular, but their big question was if you were to die today, where would you go? And it's funny, Joby has a whole like take and joke about that, right? About how
yeah.
ridiculous of a question that is. But anyway, they are the they are the ones that kind of popularized that. And as much as it's very like kind of cringe factor to go to a stranger and say, if you were to die tonight, where would you go?
Yeah.
Um, into the dirt. Um, but yeah. But as odd as that is to say to a total stranger, it is kind of sobering um way to think about, like, to use that word legacy,
Yeah.
in whatever way you're thinking of it. Like, hey, how would people remember me? Um, what would I be leaving to my kids? Right? And whether that's like relationally, financially, um, their walk with the Lord.
Hmm.
I mean, so many different ways, right? I mean, think about somebody that you've lost, and it's like, okay, what are the things about this person that I'm carrying on? What are the things I remember? What are the things that I'm choosing to leave behind? You know, um, all that kind of stuff. Um, so yeah, man. I I would gather that every dad has at least thought about this at some point,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
what are your kids going to be? Like, even if it's just like, are my kids going to grow up and be like awesome people or like a-holes, right? I mean,
This is a valid question.
that is part of this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And how much of that is our fault?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yep. And
There's
that might be the part that some of us want
wrestle with more than others.
yeah, or ignore. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah, and so some of those like sub questions I had is the idea of like, as you wrestle, and I didn't mean to go to the evangelism explosion hyper 90s critic, cringy, because I think I've even heard that at camp. If you were to die tonight,
oh, I'm
if you're,
sure.
and
Yeah,
they
it's
always play it
popular,
up.
man.
It's always the worst, like, you get hit by a bus while walking in Jamaica. Like it's the worst, setup imaginable. It's never just like if you go peacefully in your sleep tonight. No, it's always some kind of car wreck on the way home from youth group, which you're like, wow, that's just a horrible thing to correlate. Um, but kind of my idea was like, what are we building? What have we built? Are we proud of what we've built? We want that written down. And then what does our like character reflect about us? Like it says that Noah walked with God, and then to him was credited righteousness. He didn't just have righteous. I mean, I guess he did have righteousness, but some of that righteousness is coming from the fact that he walked with God. He was close to God. And so God saw him as a righteous person. I really hope I'm not butchering that theology. It's early. Um, but that's kind of my thought is like, so for us, taking it out of the zooming out of the scripture context and kind of just modern day, even if you're listening, you're not a believer, like what have you built, man? Like what can be said of you or woman or teenager, um,
Person.
person, individual. I'm running out of descriptors. Cat.
Yeah. I
Um,
actually had something last night that happened that uh is right in line with this. And I wish I could say I just knocked it out of the park. Not the case. So, one of my kids had a uh kind of rough go last night with a couple things, you know, um, was something he was doing, and we got home and settled down, and he was just kind of unloading his emotions a little bit. And
mhm,
um, you know what he needed was he really needed just me just listen to him vent, and a shoulder to cry on, and that kind of stuff. What I initially did was tell him what to do, right? Here's how you can fix this problem. I know there's no dads out there that have ever done that.
the
Um, hey, I'm not looking
mansplaining.
for a solution. right?
Yeah.
Um, and you know, I eventually kind of redeemed myself, and we came back to it. But like, I thought about that story with one of the questions you had, like what do you want your introductory statement in history to be? And right, so Noah was right. Like he found favor. He was righteous. He walked with God. Right, these things, and I feel like um, the longer I have a relationship with God, um, the more emphasis I put on just really, really loving the fact that He sees me.
Mm,
Um, and man, a lot of times with my kids, I see that's what they want too. Um, and looking at your parents, looking at people that are like mentor figures, like parental type figures in your
yeah.
life. That's what we want, right? We just want those people to see us. And man, I learned that lesson pretty hard last night. um, but and is there time for correction and like teaching and stuff? Yes, but um, I think we can sometimes uh confuse those things. And yeah, that was just kind of a helpful reminder for me, just to know that like a lot of times all we really need is to be seen. And some of the monumental steps that I've made in my relationship with Lord, um is when I get a reminder of that. And honestly, like in my relationship with my family too, with my kids, with my wife, when something happens and it's evident, like, oh, they see me, they care for me, they're seeing this trouble that I have, they're doing something for me. Like that is that's the biggest thing. So all these other things that we try to do in terms of leaving our legacy, um, are fine, are needed, right? But a lot of times I just think that they're not as important as some of these relational type
Yeah.
things. Anyway,
No, I agree. It's good. Um, the last kind of sub point I had in these first few moments of Noah is that the way we walk and carry ourselves influences those around us. Like we want good things for marriages, kids, friends, etc.
oh yeah,
So how is our walk? And that is probably a pretty churchy, faithy term. It doesn't have to be, but the idea is just like how are you living? What are the things that you do on a daily basis, not what your one hit wonder once a year is. You're like, man, I just crushed that annual report at my business meeting. Like I'm just talking your daily consistent, the conversations like you said, Chad, last night, you learned, hey, the student just needs me to sit and listen with them. There is a time for teaching and correction, but honestly, what you're going to learn over the time of working with those students is they want you to listen more than they want you to talk into it. As frustrating as that can be at times, because,
yeah,
well, we've been on the other side of the wall and we know not to jump over it, but we'll get there eventually. But yeah, the idea that I had is like, so how is our walk impacting those goals and visions? What are the things that we're doing? Are they impacting what we want? Like, think about it, I guess, in this way, that introductory statement at the end of our life. What are you doing today that impacts that statement? Or what are the things that we can be doing? Or even in just impacting the people, like our goals and visions for those around us. Like, how is that impacting spouses, kids, your small group at church, etc.?
yeah. That's a good question. So, and we're just, this is probably a great time to be talking about like, goals and like visions for your life and that kind of thing because we're in January.
It's
And
new year, new me.
yeah, I gotta tell you, man, like January is always like a mind game for me because, December, especially like the end of December, right? Like the last couple of days, there's all this like, oh man, next year it's like out there and it's coming. And there's so much
It's just
opportunity.
another manic
Like
Monday.
we're gonna crush it, right? There's all these awesome things coming. And then man, January 1st and 2nd hit, and you're like, oh, it's here. And things are exactly the same.
Yep. Yep. It's just a new fiscal
Um,
tax year.
and one thing that I have to remind myself of often, and I don't know who gets credit for this concept or this quote that I'm about to butcher, um,
Do it.
is that we overestimate what we can do in the short term and we underestimate what God can do through us in the long term.
Hmm.
And it's great to have goals, daily, monthly, yearly, lifetime goals, whatever. But a lot of times I think it's easy to get bogged down in, oh, but I'm not getting to this place on my vision board or whatever,
Yeah.
right? Which I don't have one of those, so I don't know where that came from. But I do have goals.
Pinterest.
Yeah, but but yeah, so that's something that helps me that I have to keep reminding myself of is that a lot of times I think I can do a whole lot more in the short term, and not that I just give up and don't work towards things, but really putting the emphasis on, okay, God, what are you doing? And, um, you know, and when you kind of look back over a long period of time, you see how some of those things can develop, but in the moment, it's like there's nothing moving, you know? So,
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. I think it's something maybe to steal from our friend Jason Alcott up in Canada,
oh, yeah.
where he sets that their family sits down and sets those five things or five ideas or five goals that they have for that year.
Yeah, that's
And I think
impressive.
and I think then that creates a tangible way to begin putting data into, and again, what people write of us at the end of our lives really doesn't matter because everybody's going to write something slightly different. To some to some people, Hitler was okay. And I'm throwing. I know that was a big
Oh, wow.
jump
We're
in
going
thought,
Nazi. Okay.
but let's think through this. All right, he's probably the worst guy we know of in history. Total trash. I mean, come on, what a jerk. Somebody probably at the end of his life was like, "No, Hitler was my best friend." I don't know, maybe not. Maybe he ran all his friends off. But then to the rest of the world, we all write that he sucks. So, but the idea I think I was trying to drive at, and that was a jump from Canada to Nazi Germany. I'm sorry, Jason. To go back to Canada where it's much more peaceful and they have caribou and moose and
Maple syrup.
Mounties. Maple waffles sounds good right now. I already drank through my cup of coffee. What's left in it is very cold, so I can't wait for a second cup here in a second. But I think the thought that I was having is what Jason's doing with his family is creating a tangible, this is who we want our family to be this year. And then they can run everything they do day by day through that filter of, is this helping grow? Let's say kindness is one of their words for the year. Well, is this helping us grow kindness in our house? Is this helping us grow
Yeah.
a servant, acts of service mentality? Like, are we actually helping mom with the chores or are we still grumbling about it? So I think maybe that's something where as dads, what's something that we can sit down and maybe even start with just like 5 weeks. Like, hey, over the next 5 weeks, I want to be more intentional on getting on the floor. Like if you're like a dad like me with young kids, hey, I want to spend at least 15 minutes, no phone, even nearby, on the floor playing blocks and building towers for my toddler to crush. Um, or maybe Chad, you're there in your season of life, some older kids, hey, it's at least an hour outside. Maybe that's too long. I don't know. But throwing the football and just talking, and then maybe you set the reason why you're setting that goal is because it creates intentional bonding time to knock down walls with your kids.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of that idea is that's a way that you're walking that then is reinforcing visions because I think all of us want to be, all of us would say, "Oh, my vision for my life is be a good parent, be a better husband, et cetera, so forth." Um, but then we get lost in the weeds of, "Hey, I need to work, and I'm tired, and the car broke down, whatever, stuff like that."
Yeah, yeah. And I think that goes with the theme of kind of what God can do over a long period of time, right? Because
Hmm.
like, and I'm guilty of this too. Like, I want to see fruit from the that those, you know, like intentional times that we spend with our kids. And um in the up close, like short term, it's hard to see that stuff. But like over the years, I see every time that my my kids decide to um spend time with me, or I mean, the thing that's sticking in my head right now is Pierce is in college and he could go kind of wherever he wanted, um uh you know, and
Yeah,
find a college, but he chose, he wanted to stay here, uh you know, live at home, right, continue to be here with the family. And so a lot of the, you know, a lot of those choices, a lot of those decisions have really gotten to that place. And um so yeah, it's you know, and kind of bringing it back to Noah, right? So he's spending all this time, and however long you want to say that it took him to do this thing, right? Another thing
right.
to say is he's out there in a place where like there ain't a lot of rain, and he's here and hey, there's a big old flood coming, you got to do this thing. And like that had to be hard to see,
Yeah, and I think we
right?
cover that in the next conversation because I guess when we examine him and
Oh,
God's
okay.
interaction. So I haven't
Jumping
gotten that
ahead.
far in ahead. Yeah, but I think that's what's coming next is kind of that bold obedience. So um but yeah, well, Chad, we need to start wrapping up. It's 7 a.m. Look at that. We kept it shorter
There
being
it is.
early in the morning. But I know we got to start getting ready for our respective days and man, is there any parting words of wisdom from today's conversation that you want to drop with our people before we shut this thing down?
Yeah, I guess one thing I'll say is, you know, to be or not to be on a horse, that is equestrian. Bye.
How long have you been sitting on that?
Since yesterday, I got so for Christmas we did a couple of those like little like white elephant type things,
Hmm.
and one of the ones I got came with this little like aluminum tin, and it has these like random like dad jokes in it.
I love that.
And
I love
so
that so
every
much.
now and then I'll just grab one off the top and see. And so that was
I will
yesterday's.
I'll have to go find my dad joke book and maybe I'll start keeping it with me when we record so I can start turning them
Play a
around.
little
But
dad joke roulette here.
that's right. That's right. That's good. I used to do that in the classroom. I had a dad joke of the day. All right. Well,
Yeah, man.
on that note, listeners, if you've got questions, comments, you want to join in the conversation, because we really want this to be more than just Chad and I being talking heads, please by all means reach out via Instagram, respond to the Spotify, um, add us on Facebook and Instagram and message us. We may respond to you if you're a random stranger. Maybe just start with the headline of, "Hey, I listened to your show." But yeah, we'd love for this to be more than just talking heads and let us know what you think of what we're doing and how we can continue to help support dads and be for dads. So with that, I do think we're shutting this one down, Chad. Until next time.
Yeah, Justin, it's great as always. See you next time.
All right. Bye.